So we're talking here about the World Uncut, strengthening the UK-India foreign and defence partnership. Delighted to be here with the Shadow Foreign Secretary of the UK, David Lammy. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Lovely to be here.
So I spoke to Sir Keir Starmer on Monday, and he told me that he wanted to look forward, not backward. He wanted to reset the relationship. In your view, why is this so important?
Well, I think there are a handful of countries in the world that are frankly so important and have such a long-standing relationship with us in the UK that it is absolutely clear that whomever is in number 10, it has to be a very, very strong partnership between our two countries. So I think Keir wanted to emphasise that the Labour Party, under his leadership, is in a place where we are aspirational, where some of the politics that may have made parts of our Indian diaspora in this country a little bit unsure have been put to one side, and where clearly the United Kingdom and the great country of India have a key role to play in the global community, bilaterally, but also multilaterally, in fact. Both of us face similar challenges, and that I certainly, as Foreign Secretary, if I become Foreign Secretary at the next general election, look forward to working very closely with my Indian counterparts. So that was the ambition, that was the mission. There are some things to do internally in the Labour Party. We do want to see more. We've got 9 members of Parliament of Indian descent on the Labour backbenches. I'd like to see that number rise over this next period. We're still doing selections, but I hope that we do select more Labour candidates of India. People do want to see visible representation, of course, and I recognise that as an ethnic minority. But the important thing is that we're also a party that's about upward mobility, that's aspirational, that appeals to that entrepreneurial, innovative nature, dynamic nature, I think, of the Indian diaspora in our own country.
You're a great example of the upward mobility possible within the United Kingdom. You're an MP representing Tottenham. I'd actually like to move to something you said just there about the shared issues between the UK and India. And one of the things that Sir Keir Starmer spoke to me about was a new strategic partnership between the UK and India. Global security, climate security, economic security. Now, of course, can't do anything about it till you become, if you do become Foreign Secretary, but give some flesh to what that would actually look like, could look like.
Well, look, clearly, the starting point for our modern relationship will be a free trade agreement. That trade agreement has not yet been done. Promises were made. I think Diwali last year was when we were going to have it, and we still haven't got it. And it's our job in opposition to press for that, because there were promises made and they've not yet been delivered by the current government. But notwithstanding that, it's really because of the importance of India in the global community, country that's going to be the most populated in the planet, a great democracy, a country facing some of the challenges and concerns around China that have been raised by us and by allies, particularly. There's a lot we can do together. I think a strategic partnership means doubling down on areas of mutual interest: healthcare, science, technology, some of the new challenges of the future, quantum, artificial intelligence, innovation. Look, I've been to India many times over the years, and I remember being in Kerala, it's about 4 or 5 years ago, at a higher education institute. The intellect of the young people was incredible, and I've been to universities all over the planet. Their sense of dynamism, the sense of possibility. We have some of the best universities in the world here. There's more partnership we can do in terms of research, innovation, beyond technology and facing some of the challenges, the combined challenges that both we face bilaterally and multilaterally in the global community. So when I think we talk about a strategic partnership, it's about doubling down on the issues where we have an edge here in the UK, but India most definitely has an edge. And if we combine efforts, bringing trade, business, education together, we can make a big push on the global stage.
I was interested in Modi's visit to the United States, my home country, that one of the lines that was picked apart from his speech to the US Congress was around relationship with different regional powers. And you mentioned China there. India's overtaken China as the world's most populous country. It's a future superpower. It's the world's largest democracy. So I wonder what role you would like to see India play. It's sort of moved away, as the US press is reading this as moved away from the non-aligned movement. It's a regional power, much like Brazil, much like Saudi Arabia. I wonder, when you look out at the world, what role would you like to see India play?
Well, look, I mean, I think that we are living through very challenging geopolitical times, principally because of the threat of climate driving migration across the globe. The war in Ukraine has had a massive impact on global prices. If you're in a country like Bangladesh next door, food scarcity and those issues are tremendous ones for a population. There's more we can do together with India actually on development. But we're also living in an age where we have multipolarity between the superpower that the United States has historically been and the role of China as it's growing its military arsenal particularly, and there have been issues in the Taiwan Straits. India plays a very important role. It's a country to which many others in the global south look. When we talk about the Indo-Pacific Basin, Indo means something. India plays a very important role in relation to that. India is a democracy, of course, which is very important, which gives it an instinctive relationship with what has been traditionally described as the West. And there are areas on which we are in agreement. You know, we in the UK have long said, for example, that India should have a place on the Security Council of the United Nations. No doubt about it, India is going to continue to play a very important role. Demography in China means a falling population in a country like China, falling population actually, and aging population in Japan just next door. Completely different picture in India, which a bit like the African continent remains a country with a very dynamic, youthful population, which obviously bodes well for its future economically as well. So for all of those reasons, I, as Foreign Secretary, look forward to working very closely with my Indian counterparts. And as I say, the UK and India, because of a long history particularly, need a relationship and must have a relationship like the relationship that we would talk about with the United States. It doesn't matter who is the incumbent at the White House or number 10. It's a strong, close, powerful relationship.
Well, let's talk about the history of that relationship, because it's a complicated one, right? History of inequality, of exploitation during the colonial era. And I imagine you have some personal thoughts about this, since your parents were from Guyana, a former British colony. And you've spoken very passionately, very memorably about the Windrush scandal here in the UK. I wonder how you think the UK should approach this issue of empire. Does it have any relevance in the modern world?
Well, of course, you know, when I reflect on that history and my own family history, I should just say, you know, my family stemmed from Guyana, and they were the descendants of primarily enslaved Africans, of course, But in my own family, it's important to say that my grandmother, my mother's mother, and great-grandmother were the descendants of indentured workers that came from Calcutta. My family name on my mother's side is Ragabir. So I have Indian heritage. And if you go to the country of Guyana, there is a large Indo-Guyanese, we would call it, population. And there are people who have mixed heritage like my own family. I think that the Commonwealth is the best manifestation of how you can move from empire to a shared gathering of countries who are able to work together on common issues. And I suspect there's more that we can do in relation to that. And I think as we move further into the 21st century, we should be able to move on from some of the darker and tougher moments in our country with a degree of honesty, but in the end, look forward with the challenges that we face today. And those are challenges around climate, they're challenges around education, and still the Sustainable Development Goals that see a lot of people around the world facing serious impoverishment and a lack of schooling. The empowerment of women, I think, are hugely important. Look, the birth of my party is a progressive party. It's a party that's effectively was born for people having rights, working people, women, minorities and others. So these are issues that we hold dear.
The audience here, quite a few businesses represented here. We've got a lot of Indian businesses in the room, both are located in India and located in the UK. 954 Indian-owned businesses now operating in the UK, hundreds of thousands of employees. They pay millions in corporation tax. The economy in the UK still faces its challenges, growth being one of them, and Indian businesses can be part of that growth story. What's your message for them as Foreign Secretary? They say they want stability, they want to know that there's prospects for growth. What do you say, and what do you hear from them as you're traveling around?
They want certainty in terms of the UK economy. We need to move on, I think, from the rancor of Brexit. We've said in my party that we won't be going back into the structures of the European Union, but of course we want a closer trading relationship with our European colleagues. That's good for Indian business as well. But we also need here in the UK proper industrial policy. And proper industrial policy means that we will always be forward-leaning to India, because it means tech. Biotech has been discussed at this. It means quantum. It means innovation and the importance of HE. It means healthcare with growing and aging populations. And it means real work coming out of the war in Ukraine in terms of energy security and the race to net zero. These are huge trading and business opportunity. And one thing, it links slightly back to your last question. I'm not sure in our islands that all of our population recognize how dynamic the Indian economy is. You know, I'm privileged to have traveled to Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore, Jaipur. I've seen, these tower blocks, these offices, these huge hotels,
and a sense of dynamism.
Huge energy, this huge burgeoning and growing middle class. India is some way away for people to travel. Obviously, I think you've got a powerful sense of that if you're in business. You may not have a powerful sense of that if you're someone who you go to Spain or France once a year in the summer. You may not fully understand that. I think it's the job of government and ministers like me, if I'm in, to really convey those huge opportunities that exist for our growing economy and how we link to India to get a modern sense of India out there. India is not all the story of period dramas at the Raj. We can't always look back. Let us look forward, because believe me, the future is being written in the South Indian subcontinent.
Interesting. You've said that we could change where diplomats are posted, and you speak very passionately about what India offers and the opportunity that India offers. How many more diplomats could you see from the UK to India?
I'm not going to put a number on it, but we have been critical that you can't just have rhetoric and no delivery behind it. And therefore, when we looked at the numbers of diplomats that we saw that were being cut from posts in India, were being cut in the broader Indo-Pacific, including China, it made no sense to us when this is a region that's going to have 50% of the world's GDP. Over this next period, post-2030. It makes no sense. The mission of the Foreign Office has got to be one that is driven by economic diplomacy. It's key to delivering growth, and we've set an ambition of the highest growth in the G7. And that means, of course, that we've got to have diplomats on the ground making a difference for British business and indeed Indian business, building those alliances, working alongside trade commissioners, making things happen. And that's why I raised the issue. And I've got a commitment to grow the number of diplomats that we have stationed in India over this next period, should we win the next election.
The other question that I'm interested in is what happens with foreign aid. We've seen the Department for International Development kaput. It had been such an important way of the UK not just spreading its influence and values, but making real difference for people on the ground in terms of the differences in inequality, poverty. I wonder what you'd like to see as Foreign Secretary in terms of a change of attitude towards international development.
Well, it was a huge mistake to get rid of the Department for International Development. It was an outside department with a huge global reputation, and it was a huge mistake to depart from 0.7% of funding towards development, and then what was left to be spending a significant component of that really here in the UK, not overseas. And it has damaged our reputation hugely around the world. What do I want to see? Well, I want us to get back to being serious about development, get back to global leadership, get back to the reduction of poverty and inequality, which is growing at this time, sadly, because of issues around climate and food. I think there's a role for the UK working alongside, actually, friends and colleagues in India in terms of global finance, because of our strength in that area particularly, and I think leadership in global forums like the World Bank, the IMF. We really have got to grab some of the initiatives, like the Bridgetown initiative that's coming out of Barbados. There was a conference between Mia Mottley and Macron just last week.
Pretty exciting.
Very important stuff.
Yeah.
Britain's got to be in the room in relation to that. And I think that actually the other huge opportunity in the development is how can we work with India bilaterally in region? I think there's much more that we can do in partnership there. So when we talk about that strategic partnership in areas like tech and science and healthcare, actually I suspect there are opportunities for us also in development. And those opportunities are, yes, are going to be in the wider Indo-Pacific areas where climate particularly is an element, but I suspect we can also do more in the continent of Africa, where I know that India's got a deepening and growing footprint.
Time has run out, but it's been an absolute delight to speak to you. Thank you very much, Shadow Foreign Secretary David Lammy, for joining us here at the India
Thank you.
Global Forum.
Really wonderful.
Thank you.